ironic that your party, of all parties, would be talking about that when you oppose systematically every measure we put in place to fight climate change?
You brave and heroic firefighters that were fighting on the front lines, and once this fire started, I don't believe there was anything they could have done to have stopped it because of just the intensity of this fire. But you've come in here, Minister, with quite a lot of bravado. You've talked about the great job that your government's done, that Jasper is the most prepared town for a fire, and yet 1/3 of the town was allowed to burn down. Nearly $1 billion worth of damage. 2,000 people are homeless. Do you have any humility, Minister? Is there any admission that your government could have done more?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. So we have so many stars in these committee videos from the Conservative Party. Some of my favorites, Larry Brock, Kelly Block, Michael Barrett, Stephanie Cousy, Melissa Lantsman, Joss Raj Halan. There's a long Garnet Genu, Michael Cooper. There's a long list of big-time Conservative stars, and there's a list of villains too, like MP Iqra Khalid can take over one of these meetings, snap just like that. And you never know what you're going to get from a crazy NDP MP like Laurel Collins in these committee videos. Anyways, the word is out. We've revealed in the thumbnail, in the title, what this committee video investigation is going to be about. Let's take a look. It's always wild in these committee videos, guys. Let's check it out. Let's go.
Second round, the 5-minute round, and it's Mr. Lloyd who's leading it off.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Minister, for coming here. And I think the only thing I can agree with you on here is that there were brave and heroic firefighters that were fighting on the front lines. And once this fire started, I don't believe there was anything they could have done to have stopped it because of just the intensity of this fire. But you've come in here, Minister, with quite a lot of bravado. You've talked about the great job that your government's done, that Jasper is the most prepared town for a fire, and yet 1/3 of the town was allowed to burn down. Nearly $1 billion worth of damage. 2,000 people are homeless. Do you have any humility, Minister? Is there any admission that your government could have done more to prevent this fire from destroying 1/3 of the town? What could you have done, Minister?
It's quite ironic that your party, of all parties, would be talking about that when you oppose systematically every measure we put in place to fight climate change, or even to adapt
Just a
to climate change.
Lloyd. We're not in question period here.
You oppose
can we
everything.
just stop a second?
Yes.
Stop a second. Just pause for a second. Let's just calm down and have a meaningful exchange. So, where were we at? Were you at your answer or your question? I'm sorry. I was talking to Mr. Morris.
I'm here to listen to the Minister right now.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I find it incredibly ironic that your party, of all the parties in the House of Commons, would be asking these questions when you oppose both measures to fight climate change and measures to adapt to climate change. Climate change is a reality. You may dispute
your
this.
Measures
your party may not
to protect the town of Jasper.
Recognize this, but it's real, and we won't prevent.
And you are not showing any humility. You're not giving Canadians any solace.
This is not about humility and modesty, and we're not going to get into.
I'd like to move on to my next question.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Minister, in 2017 and in 2018, in multiple letters sent to your predecessor, Catherine McKenna, Minister at the time, Ken Hodges and Emil Begin, who are forestry scientists, warned your government that Parks Canada was not capable of preventing this fire, that the actions that they had taken to date were not capable of preventing these forest fires. They said it was a matter of when, not if. Why did Parks Canada fail to take the actions necessary to prevent this devastating wildfire?
I respectfully disagree with the characterization of your question. Andrew, I'm wondering if you want to talk about, I've spoken about some of the things that Parks has done. Maybe you want to add a few things?
Yeah, so through the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Council, of course, Parks Canada gets a lot of support and uses a cross-Canada, government-wide, federal, provincial standard of how forest fires are fought, what the information that goes into that.
Sorry, Mr.
that
Chair, I'm going to have to
council-
cut this
that-
off.
Well, why?
It's going quite slowly,
Okay,
so.
well, go ahead with your next
Thank
question.
you.
It's your time.
In 2018, Minister, your own superintendent of parks, Alan Fair, went on CBC and said, quote, "Fire is not something that we're actually concerned about." He claims that your department did its homework to protect Jasper. Do you stand by the words of your superintendent? Was fire not a concern in Jasper National Park? Did you do your homework? Yes or no?
Since that interview, $86 million wasn't.
$6 million.
$86 million.
For Jasper National Park?
Yes. Oh, some of it for Jasper, some of it for the other national parks
All across the
in
country.
Alberta.
Mr. Lloyd, excuse me, I'm going to stop the time.
Compared to the $2 million.
Excuse me. I like robust debate myself personally, and I have no problem with that. But please let the minister answer the question, so that we can find out the truth or an approximation of it. Go ahead.
So since that interview was done, $86 million was invested compared to $2 million when you were in power. $2 million, 86 millions.
That's false, Minister. But I will go on. In 2020, your government announced $6.9 million over 3 years for Jasper National Park. The Alberta Forest Products Association, in an open letter in 2017, said it would take $85 million to protect the park. And yet your government only invested $6.9 million over 3 years. The proof is in the pudding. A third of the town of Jasper burned down, and you're here to this committee bragging about a $6 million investment? It's not nearly enough, Minister.
En fait, vous faites erreur, c'est 6,9.
You are wrong. It was 6.9 million for pine beetle infestation, but it was 79 million total. So it's wrong to say it was just 6 million. We added 79 million after that.
Why was thousands of hectares of dead pine beetle infested trees allowed to be in close proximity to the town of Jasper? Thousands of hectares. Your government says that you've removed 1,700 hectares since 2014. Well, in a 2022 report, your own department said that they only removed 1.6 hectares of White Park pine. Like, there are thousands of hectares of dead pine beetle trees in the vicinity of Jasper. Why were these allowed to stay there when they represented a serious threat to the town? All these experts knew it. Why didn't you remove them?
So through the 1,700 hectares that were removed, so, about 17 square kilometers, which is about 8 times the size of the town of Jasper, just to put it in perspective for people.
In a 1 million square hectare park.
Correct, but with a lot of that park not being the town. We can all agree to that, I'm sure. So within that, you had a large buffer zone and a buffer zone. And on top of that, and, Landon is the vegetation and fire specialist out of Banff. On top of that, we have a whole series of ramp types of there's a large, and I don't want to just call it a sprinkler system, but a high-powered sprinkler system that protects the town, that goes up, 12 meters in height, that protects a large area of the town.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to
All
cut
of
it off
those
here. We're
types
way
of-
over time. We're way over time. But anyway, it's very complex, I know.
Thank you for your professionalism, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Longfield.
Well, thank you for being here, Minister. And I have to say that when we heard about what was happening in Jasper, those of us in Alberta were heartbroken. I know for myself, I couldn't sleep that night. I actually texted my colleague who was the MP of that area that night. For many of us, Jasper holds an incredibly special place in our hearts. I was married in Jasper. In fact, I was in Jasper in May celebrating my 23rd wedding anniversary in one of the cabins that has now burned down. I think for so many of us, we taught our kids how to ski there. We learned how to camp there. We hike, we canoe, we cherish those Rocky Mountains probably more than anywhere else in our province. And so, for me, I'm glad that I get to be here and ask you some questions. And I would say that for Albertans, while this was happening, while this tragedy was unfolding, while we were watching and so worried about what was happening with our beloved Rocky Mountains and with the people who live there and work there, there was a lot of confusion about who was in charge, what was happening. There was a lot of blame going around. You know, Danielle Smith and the UCP were very clearly blaming the federal government. There was blame going both ways. And for Albertans, we didn't really have a clear view on what was happening, why it was happening the way that it was, and if everything had been done properly. You know, I'm aware that Premier Danielle Smith has cut the wildfire management budget by $30 million. I am aware that the NDP, that my colleague Richard Cannings has been asking for some time to have a national wildfire force. I guess from my perspective, Minister, what do you say to the people of Alberta who watched us lose a third of our cherished Jasper town site, and think about places like Lake Louise, think about places like Banff, think about other national parks? How do we know that the challenges that we saw in Jasper aren't going to be repeated in future in other beloved cities in our province or other beloved towns?
So, I mean, I was talking to the mayor of Jasper. I've been talking to him on a regular basis, but I was talking to him the day before. And at that point, the fire, it was some that had started, but it was under control. We thought, most people thought that we could manage it. And then winds started picking up. Like we went from winds that were about 30 kilometers an hour to winds that went between 120 and 150 kilometers an hour. I believe in the conditions change very rapidly. You talked about lives being impacted in Jasper. Mr. Shepherd, how many Parks Canada, or maybe Andrew, how many Parks Canada employee live in Jasper? How many of them have been affected?
Yeah, so we have 500 employees that live in Jasper and their families, and 200 have lost their homes.
So we care.
And accommodations. So
we care deeply. I mean, and they care deeply. We care deeply about what happens. I talked about, you know, a buffer zone of 1,700 hectares that has been created over the years around Jasper. I believe around Banff it's around 2,000 hectares. Because of climate change, we will have to reevaluate those and probably create larger buffer zones.
And the National Firefighting Force, perhaps.
You've heard the Prime Minister said that, well, we have Parks Canada, that is a federal forest fighting force, but could we do more? We've invested a lot since budget last year in more forest fighting capability federally. I spoke about the investment we've done specifically around Jasper in the last few years, you know, north of close to $90 million.
Sorry, I do know that you've already given us some of those numbers, and so I don't want to make you repeat yourself. And I guess from people that are living in Alberta, what we're thinking is that is this going to be sufficient, considering that climate change means these are going to happen more and more regular, and are we going to be able to respond to them as fast as we need to? And I think most people would say that the budget happened in the spring, the forest fire happened in the summer, and it didn't seem to help the people of Jasper. So I would just reiterate that for you as well.
I don't
One
think,
other question, I just
no
really quickly wanted to, just one second.
Adapting to climate change.
And I understand that. I'm not saying that we aren't going to have forest fires, but I do think that the response to those forest fires has to be stronger, to be honest. And I do think that the collaboration between the provincial government and the federal government was wanting, and those looking in saw confusion and fights. Whether that was just on the news is one thing, but that's what Albertans saw.
It's one thing for what Premier Smith said. If you talk to the forest fighters who were on the ground, there was, whether you're a Jasper forest fire, whether you're with the Alberta government, whether you're with Parks Canada, they worked like that. Mr. Shepherd, you could talk about that. But
the communications was not strong for those in Alberta. It was a very difficult time for many of us. One really quick question I want to get in before my time runs out. One of the challenges that we have is Jasper is a tourism city, of course. There's a lot of people who make their living off tourism. We know that for many of them, they were not able to have sufficient hours to access the EI system. This is a real challenge for workers that were, you know, by no fault of their own are no longer able to work. I've written with my colleague Blake Desjardins, we've written to your government, we've not received a response. Is there any chance, or is there any attempt being made to ensure that those people who have been affected by the fire in Jasper will be able to access EI because they
Okay,
didn't.
very, very briefly, because we're at 6 minutes, I'll do maybe 10, 15 seconds. Maybe we can answer that in another round.
I'm the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. I will certainly raise your point with Minister Boissonnault, who's responsible for
Thank you.
for
Okay,
EI.
we'll go to our...
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what we really should think about what we just saw in that committee video. It's so hard to get answers. These conservatives are asking the right questions. We see it all the time. These liberals get in the way. The witnesses are never prepared. They don't have the right answers. I try to keep notes, but there's no sense. Let me know in the comments what I should think. My name's Aaron, this is Canadian Looney, and this is another Wild Committee investigation video. There are so many of them under this Trudeau, NDP, Jagmeet, Liberal coalition government. It's a total farce. We need an election. That's it. There's no more to say about that. We just need an election. Hopefully we'll get one. My name's Aaron. Like, subscribe, share, get notified, all those fun things. Please leave a comment. Love the comments. Check your next video. Thank you for watching this one. Remember to get notified for the live shows. That's worth a look. Our live shows and getting involved in the chat room. It's a good experience. Come check it out. That's it. Learn about Canadian federal politics with Canadians similar to yourself. That's it. My name's Aaron. Canadian Looney. Catch you next video. Thanks for watching this one.